Hello, I'm Dr. Deanna Minnick, and in this segment we are going to talk about what I call the spirit system of health, which corresponds to the color white. Now, you don't see white on the table, but I did indicate the spirit through this color lavender so that you can see it clearly. And what we're talking about in the physiological sense is moving away from food, moving away from the clutter of all the different toxins that come in. It's quite interesting that for as long as humankind has been in existence, that we've always felt the need to cleanse, to purge, to purify. And we have seen that in medical traditions as much as we have in spiritual disciplines. And so with the spirit, we think of the non-physical parts of ourselves, how perhaps fasting, intermittent fasting, moving away from things that are toxic, can be really important for helping us with our physical existence. So in this segment, I'm going to talk about the process of detoxification. And one of my favorite aspects is to talk about detoxification in a very holistic, whole person way. So I'll talk about the nutrients, but I'll also talk just a little bit about how do you do a broad spectrum detoxification program. I'll also talk about the nutrients related to light, because when I think of the spirit, when I think of light, I think of the sun, I think of the finer energetic aspects of nutrition, and the fact that we get most of our nutrition from light, because it's the light that really does feed the plants and changes their chemistry and then gives us nutrients. So as a result of that, I will talk about vitamin D just a little bit, because even though I've talked about it before, I didn't really go as deep as you probably would like to have in terms of clinical pearls. So I'll do a couple of slides on that. And then the spirit to me talks about vital force, our chi, our prana, our energy, how we are constitutionally, and how do we age successfully and retain that vitality, that life force. So first and foremost, as we talk about supplements, I've been talking about the quality of supplements. There's also the aspect of purity. So if we're talking about the spirit, coming clean, being pure, being clear, having that inner reset, we also need to apply those same principles to the supplements that we buy. And a dietary supplement is only as good as it is true to what it says and used under the proper conditions. So we don't know what we don't know. And so making the best guess based on a company that we trust is really important. You know, purity of a supplement and purity of foods, purity of, even being aware and conscious of our choices in life, I believe is so important. So, there are many different supplement companies where they don't have good quality control practices. So I think first and foremost to really ask the supplement company that you work with and say, what are your quality measures? How is this important for you at the company? Get some information about how they assess that. Now, one of the things that I like to bring in for a detoxification program is hypoallergenic powders. So these are just very simple protein powders, typically rice-based, in order to create a more elemental diet, to move away the noise of all the different foods that can come in. Things like alcohol and sugar and coffee and white flour and, just so many things that cloud our spirit, that prevent us from being very aware and truly in tune with our bodies. So here's a case study of somebody that I have been working with for several years who had rheumatoid arthritis initially. I had her on a detoxification program where I put her on an elimination diet and had her take out a lot of these inflammatory foods, put her on some supplements, and essentially she had recovered from rheumatoid arthritis and even got off her methotrexate. Subsequent to that, throughout the years, what I decided to do is I asked her if she would like to try a detox powder, a supplemental powder. So not change her food, just bring in a detox powder. So at the time, she was about 60. She lived in the suburbs, so more of a relaxed lifestyle. She was now retired, she wasn't working. And I put her on this detox supplement powder. And within 7 days of starting her on this, her symptoms, any kind of symptoms that she had, were reduced by almost 70%. And she didn't even have a lot of symptoms, but whatever she had happening for her tended to be reduced. She said that she was sleeping better and deeper. And for some time, she had a rash in the back of her neck that had gone away after including this detoxification powder. So it's interesting to see how we can change some of the physiological processes just by giving the body the actives it needs to move things out and through the body to detoxify. And again, detoxification is nothing mysterious. We do it all the time through the 5 major body organs, through the gut, the liver, the kidneys, the lungs, and the skin. So what we're doing with nutrients is we're helping that process rather than getting congestion where we're taking in so much and the body can't keep up. And so many people have different genetics where they're not able to move things out of the body with ease. They might get a lot of congestion in their liver. So it's really important to bring in things like watercress and pomegranate, milk thistle. There are so many of these different actives that really do create a sense of movement out of the body. So another thing that I've been talking about is multivitamins. If we're talking about supporting the overall being and really getting at diverse things, I think that having multivitamin mineral is great for the synergy that it creates in the body. It's covering a lot of different bases, and it's helping on a daily level with removing toxins. And I feel so strongly about toxins. You know, if you look just even at how many chemicals have been cataloged, we're looking at something on the order of 80,000 different chemicals are in the environment in this day and age. And every year, we get another 2,300 introduced. So our planet is becoming more and more toxic. So having something like a multivitamin mineral is so important for the daily insults that we experience from these toxins. I call this the toxin load. If you think of your body as a vessel, and with every exposure we start to collect these toxins, how do we eventually move them out? For so many people, their gut, their liver, their kidneys, their skin, their lungs aren't really working optimally. So the nutrients are what will be essential for helping them in that process. Vitamin D, let's talk about vitamin D briefly because not that it's involved with detox, but it is involved with many different body systems. So when I think of the spirit, I'm thinking the overall system, the overall body, how everything is working together. Because to me, what is spirituality? Spirituality is the interconnection. It's meaning, it's purpose, it's how everything interrelates to one another. And vitamin D is one of those nutrients that interrelates with so many different other systems. And what's fascinating is that vitamin D goes beyond increasing calcium absorption. That's what we know from nutrition textbooks. But if you go beyond and you start to look at immune cells, inflammation, back to what I spoke about in the root, in the red system, we see a connection there with vitamin D in the immune system. We also see that there's a positive association between autoimmune conditions and levels of the activated form of vitamin D. And when somebody is deficient in vitamin D, there can be an association with inflammation. So here are some different clinical aspects that I think of with vitamin D. So one, first and foremost, it's very easy to have your patient's vitamin D level measured. That can be done relatively easily. And so looking at when levels drop below 50 to 75 nanomoles per liter, I think, every country has its own optimal range, but essentially you want to be looking at the laboratory range and whether or not it's low. If somebody has an inflammatory condition, an autoimmune disease, you especially want to be thinking of vitamin D. And I also think just depression, mood, just looking at anything in particular and really again tracking to the lab to see if there is a correlation between perhaps the symptoms that they're exhibiting, and that particular lab result. It's just one other thing to be looking at. So these are just some general vitamin D pearls. I'll let you look through these a little bit. Vitamin D3 is typically better absorbed than vitamin B2. I'll repeat that. Vitamin D3 is actually better absorbed than something like vitamin D2. And we have to think about, again, the different ranges that are put out by different labs for that individual patient. It's quite interesting. There are certain things that help with the active conversion of vitamin D in the body. Soy isoflavones sometimes are included together with a vitamin D supplement to help in that conversion to the active form. Now, let me take us back into metabolic detoxification. And I do want to show you some of the biochemistry that goes along with detox, because some people think, I'm just going to fast, and if I fast, then I will detoxify. And for some people, that is not enough. That won't effectively detoxify somebody. In fact, they can get quite sick if they're fasting or not eating, because in order to move things out of the body, we need nutrients. And let me show you what I mean by that. So here we have the different phases of detoxification in the body. And if you go from left to right, what you see is that the first phase is really about taking a lipophilic toxin, and we need all of these nutrients. Look at all of the nutrients that are used for the conversion of something that is fat-loving into something that is water-loving. So from lipophilic to hydrophilic, we see a lot of the different nutrients that are used. This becomes more reactive in the body, so many times we need antioxidants, and then we move that into phase 2, which is trying to get those actives out of the body. So if you just kind of zoom out and you're looking at this process of how the body moves toxins out, it's very nutrient requiring. So we do need nutrients to help us to cleanse effectively. So together with a colleague of mine, we wrote a scientific and clinical review article, and we published it in the Journal of Nutrition and Metabolism, in which we looked at all the different detoxification pathways and the nutrients that helped to emphasize those pathways. And it's quite extensive. If we look at some of the different approaches and what you could do, there are 4 major areas to focus on. One is to help bolster the antioxidant defense system with phytonutrients. Another one is to help the liver with methylation, looking at B vitamins and choline. Number 3 would be helping with heavy metals by upregulating metallothionein with things like zinc. And number 4 is to promote alkalinization, overall balance of potassium and different minerals and electrolytes. All of this can really add to the body's ability to detox. So with heavy metals, this is a large concern for many people, because usually when you think of detoxification, you think, well, what am I cleansing out of me? Many times we go to this place of thinking of heavy metals and how they are in the environment, through the air, through the soil, through the water, and we're constantly taking these in, whether it's arsenic or lead or mercury. So there are a number of things that we can do to effectively detoxify these metals from the body. And one of the things that I think of is minerals. Essential minerals, things like zinc, things like iron, things like selenium, can help to displace some of these heavy metals from the body. And I also think about protecting the body from their insult by giving an antioxidant. It can be very effective for reducing a lot of the oxidative damage. So let me give you a summary of, as we think about the spirit, the non-physical, about detoxification and cleansing, and also just to zoom out, thinking of nutritional supplements in general, because I do think that there is a place for them in clinical practice. I do think that many people have risk factors for chronic disease. They're not able to change, and they need some kind of progressed transition into making changes. And I do think that supplements can give them the feeling of feeling better in order to make a longer term change. And I do think as well that nutrigenomics, looking at people's genetics, can help a little bit to understand if some people have more unique interests for certain nutrients, especially as we look at detoxification, perhaps more than others. And in the end, in the 21st century, nutrition is really about personalization. So we have to look at everybody as a separate entity with different needs and not always thinking of one protocol for every single person. So I hope that this has been a valuable presentation for you. If we think of, again, the spirit, my approach has been to create a book called Whole Detox, which is a whole system of cleansing, which is actually very colorful and not so much in the way of just removing everything, but also what do we add back in. And so in the Whole Detox program, I have a 21-day program with 3 days for every color of the rainbow. So days 1 through 3 is focused on red colored foods. Days 4 through 6, we focus on orange. Then we move into yellow and green and aquamarine and so forth. And what is really key with detox, as it relates to the spirit system, is even a whole complex array of different modalities. So nutrition works best with lifestyle. So definitely having food, nutrition, but then also I bring in emotions, I bring in thought work, journaling, physical movement, affirmations, how we speak, and the positivity of those words and the effects that they have on us, visualizations, how do we visualize our future, our health, who we are and how we live, and finally, meditation, or prayer, or stillness, having quiet time. So to me, when I think of the spirit system and I zoom out and I look at the whole, the interconnection, I like to bring in a number of different pieces that extend even beyond nutrition and into lifestyle medicine. Thank you very much.